All right, we're live with another episode of our webinar series, and today we are talking about how to host a candidates night. So welcome everybody. Thank you for those who are attending and also watching live on Facebook. If you are attending on Zoom, you have to ask the questions here in the chat module because everybody is on mute. If you are watching live on Facebook, just type your questions into the stream, into the comments below, and we will get your questions there. So without further ado, today's presenters are Maria Ricardo of the Portuguese American Forum of Santa Clara and Odette Amarelo from St. Michael's Parish in Fall River, Massachusetts, and Jim McGlinchey, who is part of the Portuguese American Citizenship Project. And I'm really excited to be doing this because I think this is the first time we've really gotten this information out to a national audience and, you know, essentially letting people know that anybody can host a candidates night, you know, any organization. You don't have to be affiliated with any sort of political party or even anything regarding politics. So thank you, all three of you for taking the time to do this today. So without further ado, I'm gonna hand it over to Jim and take it away. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to sort of set the stage, this is the second series we've done with PALCUS on politics. The first one had to do with the book, The History of the Portuguese American Citizenship Project. The second one had to do with voter registration and voter turnout, really. We sort of spun into that. But if you assume that people are successfully going through and mobilizing their communities and they have groups of voters, the question is how does a citizen, how do groups of citizens effectively convey their priorities and concerns to candidates for elective office? I mean, the goal of the Portuguese American Citizenship Project was to build up in a church or in a club or in a group of people that the political establishment recognizes the strength of the people, of the group, and they go to the pastor, to the club president and said, what can I do to make you happy? And the reply should be, I'm glad you came and here's what we want to do. Well, that's sort of an ad hoc thing. The candidates night is a formalized way for people to coalesce, get their concerns together and put them in front of candidates. And the question, and it all deals with how do we establish our community as a force to be reckoned with. And the example of Santa Clara, which we'll soon discuss here, is the classic example. And it's the mantra that Antonio Borba brought up later on in the Citizenship Project. We do this to make a difference. If one citizen meets with a city council person, that's a good thing, you know, expressing their concern. But when a group of people get together and address the political establishment as a group, then I think the impact is much greater. So that's really sets the stage for the beginnings and the godmother of this whole operation, Maria Ricardo. Passing the baton to you, Maria.
Maria, you're on mute.
Pardon?
She's on mute. There we go.
Yes. Hello, everyone, and thank you for the invitation. I believe this work was very productive for us and helpful, so I hope that we can inspire other people to do it. And so maybe I'll just give a short summary of the work that we did and how we got to where we are today and some of the things that we were able to achieve. I did write down because I felt that this way I wouldn't be repeating myself so much. So in 1995, one of our committee members, Deodato Constantine, he learned from at the time, Dr. Pedro Bicudo, he was the RTPI executive consultant in the US, about RTPI offering free signal to any company willing to include the Portuguese programming in their basic cable service at no additional cost to the subscribers. In those days, our community greatly valued the opportunity to have constant TV programming in their homes direct from Portugal. We are talking about 25 years ago. There was no Facebook, there was no Zoom meetings or iPhones. But when the request was made to our city of Santa Clara officials, Finally, the Portuguese Americans of Santa Clara understood the impact of their civic detachment from the response that was, unfortunately, there is nothing we can do about it. The city decision was unacceptable to our community. Here was a purpose to finally stimulate the Portuguese Americans of Santa Clara into action, into embracing and participating in the political process of their city. Now armed with a cause and driven by the great desire to achieve their goal, a small group of community members formed a grassroots committee entitled Comissão de Apoio à RTPI em Santa Clara. That means RTPI Committee of Santa Clara. In 1996, these group members were myself as the coordinator, Pedro Ricardo, João Arruda, Diodato Constantino, Manuel de Oliveira, Manuel Madruga, and Luís Madruga. Under the leadership of Dr. Pedro Bicudo and alongside local attorney Byron Fleck, the group sought out the support of several local Portuguese American organizations. In the face of such intense deal, the following organizations pledged their help. This was SES Corporation, Supreme Council of SES, now it's PFSA, Irmandade Santo Antônio, Irmandade Nossa Senhora de Fátima, Santa Clara Sporting Club, Conselho Paroquial Português de Santa Clara, Marítimo Sport Club, Sociedade Filarmónica União Portuguesa de Santa Clara. With local support secured, an attempt was initiated to lobby the Santa Clara City Council to urge the local cable provider to add RTPI programming. The group's efforts, along with proactive cooperation from the organizations and our community in general, included difficult and long appearances at the City Council meetings. These initial appearances yield poor results. The group quickly rebounded, learning that in order to warrant politicians' attention, the group must utilize the local political system. Conducting a candidates' night with candidates for office before election seemed the best solution. The candidates' night was introduced as a twofold. First, and more important, the candidates' night offered a forum to local Portuguese Americans to hear and inquire after the issues and platforms of those representing them on the government level. Second, it was an opportunity for the community to demonstrate to candidates and elected officials that though historically the Portuguese Americans were not ones to turn out to vote, times had changed. Santa Clara city officials were present with a mobilized community ready to engage in the political machine. Presented in a town hall meeting style, the first candidates' night took place in 1996 and was an overall positive experience with an excellent number of attendees. I must say our hall was packed. Throughout the forum, the predictable question was posed to the candidates. If elected, would you support our goal to the inclusion of Portuguese programming, RTPI, on South Cable Vision service? With such large crowd at hand, the message was clear. Adding RTPI programming to the basic cable TV service was the Portuguese American community's top priority, and each candidate's response, as expected, was yes. At this time, half of the city council was on our side, but the battle was not yet won. 2 years later, in 1998, the RTPI promise was still undelivered. Another election was approaching, another candidates' night was arranged, and another positive response from the candidates, RTPI was secured. Now, every city council member had made a commitment to the Portuguese American community, and there were visible efforts of their making good on their promise. RTPI became a priority in observing the city's council transformation from apathy in the Portuguese American cause to responsiveness was encouraging in a variety of ways. Namely, it was the surest example of benefits of a democratic system. With all the pressure the cable company received from the city, their only option was to provide RTPI programming for free to their subscribers. Finally, in April of 1999, the years of dedicated enterprise paid off. Every home in Santa Clara had access to RTPI on cable. Yet, several other accomplishments were recognized that day. First, a hard-earned lesson in that for their voice to be heard, the Portuguese American community cannot sit back idle. Second, the Portuguese American community earned the respect of their local politicians and city elected officials. Based on its success, the committee decided the only appropriate action was to continue to organize candidates' nights in the future. A new name was adopted for the committee according to its function, and the Portuguese American Forum of Santa Clara was born, with one member leaving the group, Luis Madruga, and the acquisition of 3 new members, John Salvador, Emmanuel Lopes, and José de Oliveira. In 2000, we were introduced to James McClinchy, coordinator for the Portuguese American Citizenship Project. He recognized that the Portuguese American Forum of Santa Clara's mission ideals run parallel with the project he was responsible for. Since then, he has given our committee hands-on support with ways to measure our results and encouragement to continue our efforts in order to accomplish rated outcome within our local community. In 2002, he personally attended and assisted with one of our candidates' nights events, giving him an insider's view of the process and the implementation. Every 2 years during election time since 1996, and with the support of Santa Clara Portuguese American organizations, SES, PFSA, Brotherhood of St. Anthony, Our Lady of Fatima Society, Santa Clara Sporting Club, Sociedade Filarmônica União Portuguesa de Santa Clara, Irmandade Familiar do Espírito Santo de Santa Clara, St. Clare's Parish Council, Club Sport Marítimo, Portuguese American Citizenship Project, and Luz American Foundation. We organize candidates' nights. A candidates' night consists of candidates campaigning for the position of mayor, city council, chief of police. I think our city in our state, it's the only city that chief of police is also elected, and the city clerk that attend our gathering to explain their views to the public and take questions from those present. More recently, and based on the number of candidates, we have only invited the school, we have also invited the school board candidates. Having Portuguese included in our schools was of interest to many people, but we had a challenge to find people to get involved in a committee to work towards that goal. And my time is limited to add one more project, but the candidates' night response has been a positive one if someone later is willing to pursue this. I would like to add that in addition to our key community organizations mentioned above, in the Portuguese American Forum of Santa Clara has been fortunate to have the vital collaboration and support of the Portuguese American media, such as Radio KSQQ and the Portuguese Tribune, especially before we had access to internet and all the other media that we have today. And also, I would like to recognize some of the key people behind this project's success. Dr. Pedro Bicudo for his leadership, support, and encouragement during the challenge times. Byron Fleck for his advice and expertise as an attorney, and also James McClinchy that has also been responsible for helping us understand the impact of this work in our community and the value of evaluating the results of our efforts. They all deserve recognition because it was these individuals, our institutions, our community that helped us achieve this goal. And our goal to increase to increase well-deserved visibility, recognition, and respect from our elected officials, since the Portuguese Americans, we are all known, for our independency, hard work, and unwillingness to depend on government assistance, even if we are entitled and deserve it. And this truly, just one more thing, and this truly demonstrates the value of teamwork. As we say in Portuguese, união faz a força.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much, Maria. And we have a few more slides that you're gonna go through, but I think the main message here is that, again, this issue started, building this entire Portuguese American Forum of Santa Clara started with wanting Portuguese, wanting RTPI, right? It wasn't a major political issue. And I think that's a misconception that many have, that everything has to be, you know, focusing on a political issue, and it doesn't. It has to do with what the community wants and needs, right? And that can be Portuguese TV. So I know you have a couple more slides here. I don't know if you want to, let's see, let me get to the next one. There we go. I don't know if you want to kind of run through this or go to the next slide, but I know that there were, there's a format and a formula that you follow. So I don't know if you want to go through that.
I'm sorry, is it for me to?
Yeah.
Okay. I just would like to say a little bit about the Portuguese American Forum of Santa Clara, or what we are. So the Portuguese American Forum of Santa Clara is a nonpartisan grassroots committee that seeks to encourage informed involvement by our local Portuguese American community in the electoral process. The committee does not endorse candidates. Our mission is to ensure that the audience receives information objectively and without bias. With this knowledge, the candidates appreciate and response towards our work has been even more positive. We have earned strong support and collaboration from the community and organizations, which directly impacts our successful results of increased respect and support from our elected officials. I think some of the things on the slides that there's other information, but here of course, we do not endorse candidates. That's the first point, first paragraph. And they all have the same opportunity. We want them to come to our forum knowing that everyone has the same opportunity to give us their views and and then also we also take questions from the audience, and each speaker, we give them equal time, and we do not on our rules, they're not permitted to question their rivals or rebut when they speak. And we also have questions that we prepare, and of course we also have some from the audience. And at the end, sometimes there's questions that we didn't have the time to address, but we also like to have hors d'oeuvres, and the candidates and the audience appreciates it. We try to have Portuguese pastries and Portuguese hors d'oeuvres, and those are very appreciated.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you mentioned there, it's not a debate. And so that's a really important clarification, right? So this is a fairly friendly venue, right? So that help to encourage candidates to attend, because they know that they're going to have their set time to say what they need to say and not worry about a competitor jumping in and trying to debate them.
I also would like to mention that because we are a nonprofit and the organizations that we work with are nonprofits, so we do not endorse candidates also for that reason, besides making them feel that they are coming and they all have the same opportunity, right, and they all treat it the same way.
That's great.
There were a couple things about this that made it somewhat different. I mean, the idea that you can't contradict people, because I've seen this in New Bedford and in Fall River, at Odette's thing is that the steam comes out of the debate. At the district attorney race in Bristol County, these two guys were going at it. I mean, they were really having nasty debates. And they went to the one at New Bedford, and they first started taking shots at each other, and the moderator just said, no, you can't do that. Well, first of all, it was an assertion of power that these guys are, big people in the community, and somebody from the Immigrant Assistance Center was saying, no, you can't do that. No, don't do that again. And it really just sets the stage. And by the time they got the message, the whole tenor, the temperature just dropped. And everybody was talking about subjects, and information was exchanged.
That's a great example. It's really great to hear. So we have a picture here of the actual candidates night, or one of them. Maria, do you want to talk a little bit about, I guess, the format, or was there anything here that you wanted to highlight?
Yes. I also have well, usually we do it at one of our organizations' hall. That's and also the timing, we try to do it about at least no less than 2 weeks closer to the election day. And so we try to use I know I have there's a slide with all the bullet points where it has the planning basically.
Right.
And
yeah, we can go. Yeah. Okay.
But here on this slide, we see the moderator and timekeeper. The timekeeper is also very important because we usually have a yellow card when they have a few seconds left to let them know. And then we have a timer actually that it beeps when their time is over. We usually give the candidates for their introduction period about 2-3 minutes. It varies because if we have a large number of candidates, we have to calculate and see how much time we can give in order to make the forum not to go too long, because if it goes over an hour and a half, people tend to lose attention. We also have the other table where it has 3 people. There's the table where we have a box where people can write their questions. We have, pencils and paper there where people, and once they turn in the questions, then they are screened, because we have learned as we've been doing this that we can't just let people go to the microphone and ask questions. It can be difficult. Also, if they're repeated or if there's some insults, we don't want questions that are very rude or not appropriate. And the next table, of course, is our hors d'oeuvres, and everyone appreciates them. And sometimes, or actually every time, we been inviting our Consul General in San Francisco, and they have been attending. I just happen to have this picture of Dr. Antonio Carvalho, but we also have invited the other ones, and they have come, and they appreciate the work we're doing, and they see the value.
That's great. Here are some sample questions. Now, are these questions that your team created, or they came from the audience?
No, these are the questions that we prepared. Usually we look in our community to see what's going on, if there is things that are happening, like right now we have big developments going on, and whatever issues. We usually have one question that relates to our community, but we don't want to make this just everything about our community, because many things that affect us also affect other people. In this case, we were looking forward to have someone Portuguese, someone that would speak Portuguese in our senior center. So that was our main question, for our community. Also, it's like I said, the questions we have, it can affect other people too, and our community. But from the audience, depending on the number of candidates that we have, and we may ask 1 or 2 questions. We also have had occasions that we might prepare one or two just in case we don't have something from the audience, but usually we do. And we give them equal time, and it's really a great way to be able to listen to the candidates and help make our decision. Because usually when we get their information in the mail, of course, we only the information we have, it's only what they want to us to know about them. And this way we have an opportunity to compare with other people and see how they react to our questions and their responses.
Okay. Thank you. So Odette, you're up.
Yes, it is my turn. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this magnificent event that has been taking place in the West Coast, and with us in New England more specifically. I will be representing Fall River. It's a bit different because we are not doing it now, meaning the forums and the political candidates nights, but other organization has picked up and we do it, okay, with the same mission, okay, a bit different, but with the same mission. Well, in Fall River, 1999, I mean, the situation was a bit different from the West Coast. We had a big time label in which we, the Portuguese community, we were called the silent giant. And politicians knew that we were, the numbers were humongous, okay, of the Portuguese. But that meant nothing because we were labeled that, oh, they don't vote. They don't care. And at the same time, together with that, okay, another group or organization that was very much part of our conversations in New England was FLAD. And FLAD is the Luso-American Foundation for the Development. And we knew that FLAD had been coming and helping us, when I say academic institutes, with monies specifically to develop Portuguese projects or to continue with the Portuguese teaching language. And so at this moment, James McClinchy showed up. It was like the Holy Spirit. And it started, absolutely. Okay, so he started organizing some meetings and I heard about it. And one of them I did go to attend. And I understood at that time what was the mission of FLAD, okay, in the representation of James McClinchy. And I have to say, what we accomplished was just immense. But it had to be with the guidance with James McClinchy. James McClinchy was our coach, was our mentor, he was our organizer, and he knew the community, he knew the needs, and he knew what was necessary to do for us to be well represented and well heard. We had a voice, but we were not heard. So it was with him as the backbone of this project, the Portuguese American Citizenship, okay, project in New England in Fall River. So I heard before, James did say that anybody can do this, meaning any organization. Well, yes and no. Okay, you do need, okay, to have the mission statement very clear in your mind. You need to be very transparent. You need to transmit what is the needs of the community as authentic as possible. And yes, we do have members in civic organizations, in social organizations, in churches, okay? And so we do have always somebody from these groups that absolutely wanted, okay, much more than just to have a malasada or sweet bread or a chorizo sandwich. So with James McClinching bringing in this idea, it just was perfect, okay, to go, okay, to the point of us being the silent giant. And the way that it started, okay, with some social organizations, but the best was specifically with the church. And why the church? Because the church has database of all their parishioners, and James McClinching was able to guide us, okay, in identifying the parishioners that were not citizens yet. And together with the voting list, okay, so that was a perfect match, okay, to identify, okay, the Portuguese, okay, that were not Americans yet. They were not citizens. So with this in mind, okay, so we immediately develop, okay, classes for citizenship. We did do partnerships with local organizations, like such as Sir Jobs for Progress was very instrumental in helping, okay, creating classes for citizenship, together with the government center, with the city hall, through the mayor. So that helped a lot. Immediately that boosted, okay, the self-esteem and empowered, okay, our Portuguese Americans to identify that it was a must to become, okay, a citizen, but not just that, also to register to vote. So this was the beginning, the force behind the candidates' night. So we built up an incredible strength. Honestly, the priest, I'm specifically speaking about the priest of St. Michael's Church, he totally understood our mission, and he was 100% with us. That helps a lot, because having the support of the priest, okay, it helped us. I mean, guess what? We will go to the altar, and instead of the sermon, we will talk about the importance of becoming a citizen. So it helps a lot when the priest understands the mission and the importance, okay, of becoming a citizen and the difference that will make, not just for the individual, but the difference that will make for the community. So it was very empowering. So when it came the time for the forum, it was very similar structure from the West Coast, super professional, very civil. At this time, any political candidate had heard of us, and they would behave very well as soon as we would make a phone call. So to organize the candidates' night was, in a way, was easy. The spreading, disseminating the information through the church bulletins, okay, through the media, the radio, the television, and the print media was always available for us. And so that made it, okay, very easy to disseminate the information. Were we nervous about the candidates' night? Yes, absolutely, because we would always question if something would go wrong. We would question the idea of, do we need the police to be present? okay, if we are able, okay, to fill in this hall in which was 500 chairs that were put there, what will happen? Will the people behave well? I mean, many questions, but it did go as professional as possible, and it was absolutely magnificent. But was very incredibly empowering because the group that I work with was young people. And so I was like the older person, quite older, from the group. I mean, I can mention their names, in which was Vânia Viveiros and Stephanie Carvalho and Shana. So the thing is, these young people were already, okay, the children from our parents that had arrived, okay, earlier, and they had been born already in USA, were not American citizens yet, okay, but were growing up in a total Portuguese culture and social environment. They spoke the language, they were all bilingual. And so when it came to the candidates night, we did, okay, just to add from the West Coast. So we did the mayor's candidate, we did the city councilor's candidate, but we also did the school committee. So we covered, okay, all the 3 sections of government that are elected by the people.
You did that in one candidate's night, all 3
not
groups?
at all.
Or you had different ones?
Three different.
Oh, great. Oh, wow.
Oh,
Okay.
yes,
Very
yes,
cool.
yes. 3 different nights. Okay. And the most important relevant thing was in city councilors, because it's usually a large group of candidates. One candidate refused to show up. So we made sure that his name was at the table, the chair was there, and it was empty. It was empty. Yes. But all of this was coached by James McClinchy. One piece, during the forums, we had the Portuguese radio station, okay, present, and was reporting alive to the community. So it was very empowering, okay, for us and for the whole community. It meant that we no longer were going to be the silent giant. We were going to be vocal and to be present. But one piece that I definitely need to mention was the cards. The cards that was sent home and from Fall River, specifically from St. Michael Church, the number of cards was like 2,000 cards, 3,000 cards that we were sending out just prior, okay, of voting, of elections. But the genius idea from James McClinchy was, we are not going to send this card just for the head of the family, meaning the husband in the house. We are also going to send to the wife, to the lady. I mean, this was absolutely magical.
The decision makers.
Of course, because as you know, okay, basically 90% of the mail that comes to the Portuguese household is specifically with the male's name, with the husband's name. Nothing comes on her name. No, nothing. And so for the first time that the wife saw her name in a card, and it was just like the birth certificate, was like the symbol that represented her, that her name was printed, her name was there. she began, she, the wife, the lady, our mothers, our grandmothers, okay, finally saw that it means something, that they were important individuals, that this was the card that they would take to the voting poll and show to the person that would ask her, and what is your name? And immediately the card that was holding, they were holding the card tied in their hands, and they would show the cards, okay, that showed their name printed. This was absolutely so empowering for all our females, all our ladies, all our mothers, our grandmothers.
Who knew that something so simple could be so impactful, right? And
Indeed.
to the point that you made, that it was probably one of the first times that their voice was heard, or that they were recognized as having power, right?
Absolutely. And I witnessed so many of these wonderful mothers, because I took many of them to the voting place. And prior to this card, they would walk behind me, and they would walk with their heads down. And this card made them walking up straight and strong, and a sort of, okay, into the voting place. It was so magnificent to see, absolutely, that they were, the empowerment of their voices, okay. They finally realized, yes, I make a difference. Yes, my name is written in this card. So, and the card would have in one side, of course, the printed name, the address. On the other side would be bilingual. We'd be stating, okay, the date of the voting day, the time, where to vote, and the importance of voting. So usually, okay, divided in both languages. But if there was a referendum, so the referendum, okay, it usually was very important and was also on both languages. So this is, I mean, a bit of what happened during the time that we did the candidates' night. So much more that originated, okay, from this candidates' night. We were so strong against the LNG, super powerful, and we defeated LNG. We were able to do it.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Because so in Santa Clara, it was an issue of kind of like a social issue, right, with needing RTPI. But then in your case, there was an environmental issue that the community felt was not going to be beneficial to have. Can you explain a little bit what that was?
Well, of course, it had to do two sides of the story. One side, it was because the LNG was disseminating information about jobs and more jobs, and the jobs that paid so well. Okay, and that is yes.
That resonates well, right?
Absolutely, especially for us, Portuguese culture, that when it comes to work, when it comes to saving money, when it comes to looking in the future, okay, it's very important to have a good job and to be paid well, absolutely. So we had to deal with this emotional, okay, unbalanced, because we needed to constantly show how this will be super dangerous, incredibly dangerous, okay, for the environment, for the children, because the LNG was going to be just built very close to elementary schools. And so we were able to pick up these pieces again the church helped us, meaning the priest. The same priest that believed in the mission of the citizenship, he also believed that we needed to fight this fight, okay, big time. And so the demonstrations that we did, okay, along the river where the LNG was going to be built, it just as no explanation. We just needed to see and be present. And no matter what, when the candidates, any political candidate at city council level and the mayor, when they saw the thousands and thousands present, okay, walking the side on the river, okay, they had to join us. That was no other choice. So it was absolutely so empowering the community. Finally, the Portuguese Americans understood the dangers of it, okay, and everybody was just joining, okay, together. I mean, was like a pilgrimage, because it was a time that we needed to cross the bridge, okay, and we all walked together crossing the bridge. Was absolutely a pilgrimage. And
It's
so
amazing.
in one way, it is a bit easy for us, because we can project the idea, okay, of a religious celebration, okay, of a procession, kind of, okay. So instead of calling, let's get together for the parade, let's get together for the procession, okay. So and that is a combination that culturally works well. I'm not sure if there is anything else. James, anything else?
Well, just to go back to that previous slide, LNG is something I actually know about from my foreign service career. This wasn't just environmental. This is apocalyptic. These ships would come 26 miles up a river. They are the biggest ships you've ever seen. They are as big as cruise liners. They're carrying liquefied natural gas, which is a very explosive. It's a good fuel. I mean, forget about the environment. New England needs fuel. But the thing is that I've been to where they produce it in Indonesia, Malaysia, and Australia. They treat this stuff with kid gloves. And they're going to produce it very carefully, and they're going to put it up into a working class community. The blast zone, and I'm talking about a serious blast zone, extends for 10 miles. The distance between Weaver's Cove, where they were going to put it, and St. Michael's Church was what, Odette, about half a mile?
Yes.
At the most. I mean,
Yes,
they would have been obliterated. But there was the gentleman who was O Jornal, the local Portuguese newspaper. I was talking to him about it one time. He said, why would the rich Hess Oil Company and the federal government want to put that dangerous a factory, a processing plant in the middle of a working class neighborhood? And he looked at me and cynically said, because they think they can. And it was like, well, and that was hard. There was a lot of money. And basically what Odette's group did, and that whole demonstration from St. Michael's, there was a lot of people involved. The mayor was already involved in fighting it, but they gave weight to all these, because some of the political people said, hey, that's going to create jobs, like Odette said. They said, yeah, they're going to create 10 jobs and you're going to imperil the whole community. That makes a whole lot of sense. But it gave political backing to those that were fighting it, and it put an untenable position to those who were against it. So it really just reset it. It didn't stop it. It delayed it until, the Lord works in mysterious ways. The price of natural gas, we stopped as the United States becoming a net importer of liquefied natural gas. This was going to come from Libya or someplace like that. We became a net exporter. So the whole economic rationale for this, something like, I think 10 years or 8 years after this demonstration, delay, and Hess said, we don't want to do it. It makes no sense now.
So the facility was never built.
No, they sold the property.
That's amazing.
The
That's-
next
I-
slide, though.
I do remember that. Having been involved with PALCUS for so long, I do remember that issue, and I think that we got involved at some level, but there's no comparing to the impact that the grassroots, the procession that Odette was talking about, and the pressure from the community. There's just no comparing to the impact that had. So it was amazing.
Odette, should we mention that the procession with the police, the mayor marching, and with all, sirens going and stuff like that, walking through?
Go ahead, you do it.
We walked by a hairdressing salon, and some lady was sitting there. With all due respect to you ladies, sometimes you look like you're coming from the moon, with all those things in your head and all those curlers. She was sitting in the window watching, and everybody's going, "Oh, hi. Oh, how you doing, Maria? How you doing?" It was like the worst nightmare you could possibly imagine. Your whole church walks by you as you're having your hair done. That's it.
You got her attention, though. You got her attention. That's amazing. And so we have New Bedford. There was one in New Bedford too.
Yeah, this was not a local thing. This was, well, it was local. The district attorney for Bristol County, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Immigrant Assistance Center and Mount Carmel Church in New Bedford, who hosted all this thing. But they had two particular candidates that they're running. The incumbent, Paul Walsh, who was a 16-year incumbent as the district attorney. Very powerful. They determine who goes to jail, who gets deported, how the district attorney deals with all these issues. It's big time.
Super
And
powerful.
his challenger was Sam Sutter, who was really a political neophyte, a local lawyer married to a Portuguese American woman. And they invited, there was a certain degree, and I don't want to be too harsh on Mr. Walsh, but there was a certain degree of, I'm not going to come to this thing. My schedule is too tight. And I can't, I just can't fit it in. And basically the Immigrant Assistance Center in Mount Carmel said, that's fine, no problem. We're going to have it anyway. And it's going to be Sam Sutter speaking his piece, and there will be an empty chair with the sign up there. Well, of course, Paul Walsh shows up. And like I said, given the Santa Clara rules of operation, these guys were going at it. The newspapers were filled with daily, every time they'd have a candidates night, it almost came to blows. There was some really nasty things going on. And Helena de Silva Hughes now constantly had to interrupt and say, no, you can't contradict it. You can't do this. Paul Walsh was trying to speak a little Portuguese. He said, no, this is all in English. We're not loading the dice in anybody's favor. And after about maybe 10 minutes of these back and forthing, stick to your schedule, it worked. And then suddenly everything just calmed down. They talked about the issues. And then the issues, the idea, one of the things of the, well, let me just say as an aside, I had an ambassador that told me that flattery gets you, anybody that says that flattery gets you nowhere has never been flattered. So thank you for the kind comments. But all this stuff is plagiarism out of Santa Clara. We have shamelessly copied their entire way of doing it. But the idea, there's a subtle part of this whole operation, is that the local committee determines the rules. If I'm running for political office, I want to talk about my strengths. I want to talk about, I'm all for this and all for that, but not about the tough things, the hard to do things, or the things that maybe my position is not as good as what the community wants. The trick of this candidates night is the community determines what is going to be discussed. Now, we're not going to discuss the American flag. We're not going to discuss whether we're going to build an aircraft carrier. We're going to discuss schools. We're going to discuss safety in the streets. And one of the questions that came out, it came up from one of the organizing ladies, just regular citizen, just prior, we arranged these things. He said, there were 4 open drug markets within walking distance of this church. Everybody here knows everybody in this room knows where they're at. Why are they allowed to exist? Nobody that the incumbent doesn't want to talk about it because he hasn't done anything about it, and it's still a lingering problem. And the challenger has to come up with something credible. This is not something you want to deal with in a public forum because it's a very difficult question, but it's probably the most important question that the south end of New Bedford has to face in any given day. So those particular things of really an exchange of information and all that other stuff is really important. And the one thing that Odette did not mention, and I talked with Odette about this yesterday, is she had mentioned that people were, well, we should get police here. What if nobody shows up? And, you know, how are we going to do this and how are we going to do that? Well, my expert or advice was all basically, the word is plagiarism. Yeah, taking the Santa Clara playbook and just saying, don't do this, do that, timing and all that. But at the end of that whole thing, with all that nervousness, and you saw the ladies there, one of those ladies, I forget which one, came to me after the candidates night when people were having the wine and the petite couche and stuff. She said, I know exactly who I'm going to vote for. So this nervous person at the beginning basically said, yeah, they're here to convince us. We're not here to impress them. And that whole shift of attitude carries over. I forgot what the next slide is. There was another thing I was going to talk about.
Keeping records. That's important to keep records, yeah.
Well, we added some things to the Santa Clara model. It was the one thing is the radio and the videotaping, which we did in Fall River, and we did it every place on the East Coast. But if you videotape it, you have basically a compendium of all the promises made. So basically, we took the a candidate will promise anything, and I mentioned earlier in Europe one time, one of the candidates had promised bigger Christmas presents and better weather if you elected him or her. I forget whether it was a man or a woman. Well, you know, that's all fine. Well, let's see if you deliver if you've been elected. Well, what we did is we took the videos, and we had college students come and work with me during the summer, and I would give them the video and said, these are the people that won. I want you to write down all of their promises. And so you see, this is in Bristol, Rhode Island, like the incumbent, he says supports $15 million referendum infrastructure. That was done at the 22nd minute of the video. So basically we have his or her, I don't know which one, what they actually said and what their promise was. Challenger said, need to bring in economic development to help with education. He did that at 1 hour and 1 minute. So it's all chronicled. The idea is 1 year after, we don't care about the people that lost the election. They can't help us. But the people that won the election, if you go to the next slide. Angela, if you go the next slide. The next slide is what we did is we sent letters to these people and say, thank you very much. It was an honor, you know, that you came to visit us and all this other stuff. This is what you said you were going to do. And it's not challenging, not like saying, you're so worthless, you've done nothing to help. No, it's just that you said you were going to build a police station, you know, in our neighborhood. And you said this, could you just tell us how that's going? Well, I think that it makes a candidate's night extend beyond the night. It's not just a one-night event and I can promise you bigger Christmas presents and better weather. It says, it signals to everybody, yes, we kept track, and yes, we're paying attention, and we expect you to reply. Well, we didn't get much of a reply. I think this is the only letter. Deborah Coelho was a very nice lady, a very good city councilor. She did reply, but in virtually all the cities and all the towns that we did this, they didn't reply, but it didn't matter because they got the letter and they said, holy cow, did I say that? Well, yes, you did. In case you're wondering, we could play it back for you if you're interested. So it keeps the power game going. It's not a one-off event. It's an event that continues through the year, knowing that somebody's looking over your shoulder. And I don't know, I think the next slide is, oh, this is on to Maria.
I think this is self-explanatory because I don't think we need to go through each bullet point, but it kind of helps. It may vary a little bit from place to place according to the needs or according to the situation, but it kind of gives a general overview of the planning. So I don't know if like the 4 months prior, especially if you don't have a committee yet, and you, yeah, if there's a community that wants to do this, I think it's important to look. Our committee, the advantage of having our committee versus having one organization do it, it's because this continuity. I mean, we work with organizations, and that is very powerful, because when we send our invitation to the candidates, they don't see just one name or one small group. They see all these sponsor organizations that are involved. So it makes it a stronger position. But having the group, the same people, it makes it easier. But it doesn't matter. I think as long as it's done, it's always good. So basically,
Oh, this is great. So like a to-do list, you've kind of mapped it out for everybody. So you're not starting from scratch. This is a great guide.
And there was not room for a lot of detail, but I know in the PortugueseAmerican.org organization, there is plenty of additional information. But we have learned a few things. I don't know if this is the right time to bring this up, but okay, I'll do this first. So we do our advertising, we do it on the radio, we do it on the newspaper, we do it in our church bulletin, and also we bring it to our Portuguese business place. And pretty much now we have Facebook and other things, but when we first started doing this, it was very limited, but people were very interested then. So that made it easier. And so in the flyer, we put also our organizations, because, you know, they like to be visible too, and their participation. So yes, so this is kind of our way of publicity that we do.
That's great. So
I was going to bring up just some of the things that we have learned from our candidates night. And this is just a few, but especially the turnout with our organization. I know that the candidates night gives opportunity. It's a great opportunity, but if there is no motive, people may not show up as much as they would if they're that's why it is kind of important to have an issue excuse me that people know that it's going to be addressed, and it creates a lot of motivation. So, and you have to have a good size, a good number of people to attend, because if you only do a candidates nights and you have 40 or 10 or 20 people, it's going to show that there is not much interest, and that means the candidates are looking for votes. So the larger the number, the better. And so we try to reinforce that to our community. Also, one thing that we have learned is we do not allow candidates, if one candidate cannot come, and we had this happen to us, and they would send a substitute. That is, we learned a lesson, and this is a no now. Because for a couple of reasons, this candidate may mislead the audience with the information, because they can't exactly represent what this candidate is going to do regarding whatever situation. Also, the questions from the audience, always screen them, because you want to make sure that there's nothing that it's controversial or something inappropriate. And so it eliminates the embarrassment of the people putting the event together. And also the name of the candidates, we always have it on the table, like Odette also said, and that's something that we also do, is if the candidate doesn't show up, the chair's still there, their name is there, so everyone knows that candidate didn't come, and that creates some pressure on them. And so far we haven't had any issue with that. They tend to come because, you know, for obvious reasons. And again, we have some rules that we let the candidates know in the beginning, how much time they have for their initial presentation. and how much time, and we try to keep the time, and they know, and they pretty much follow that rule, and we do not allow them to speak other language. We had some trying to speak Portuguese. And another one is that if we had a Portuguese candidate, that at one point we had this issue, and it was kind of difficult because it's not that we do not like to support our Portuguese American people to also run for office, but for a couple of reasons. One, because if we're working with nonprofit organizations, they cannot really endorse candidates. And so that was something that we pretty much say where we do not endorse candidates, and it became respected by the candidates, because if we are doing this, it becomes, for them, I don't think they would be as comfortable. So I think that, I don't know if there's any other questions. I'm sure I'll think of other things afterwards, but basically the conclusion is that this has given us a lot of visibility and respect from our city officials, and I believe that other communities can also benefit. And if there is something that I personally can help with, answering any questions, I'll be glad to do it, because I truly believe in this. And thank you, Angela, for doing this, and of course, Jim, and for that. But it's not as difficult as it looks, and there is plenty of help too.
But thank you, Maria. And I think, the motivation needs to be there. And, in today's political climate, there seems to be a lot of motivation from a lot of people to get more involved. So hopefully we will see more of these, happening and taking place in communities throughout the country. And this webinar is being recorded, and it's going to be available online. And so between this recording and then the resources available on PortugueseAmerican.org, and literally the how to host a candidates night, everything is laid out right there for everybody to utilize. And so people shouldn't feel like they're starting from scratch. There's actually a proven model, right, that they can follow. So much easier. Our last slide is just, all of this leads up to getting ready for elections. So I don't know if any of you have some final words you'd like to share.
Well, I think it's where the rubber meets the road. I think when people sitting in front of candidates and demanding answers to questions, I think it's a very powerful thing, and it also requires, we keep talking on all these voter registration campaigns, having a núcleo duro, those hardcore people, the committee that keeps things going. And that's what you have in Santa Clara, and you have at St. Michael's, and you have in all over the place. So we have to just keep the ball rolling.
I just wanted to mention that besides the RTPI achievement, and there was also other things that are doing the candidates night. Another one was our organizations have parades on their celebrations, just like many other cities do. And we had, in the past, the police service was provided for free. And then we had a change in management, administration in the city. And the new people were saying, well, we no longer can support this because it is religious and costly and all of this. So basically our organizations were believing that they were gonna have to pay or not be able to do the event. And I was encouraging them that we should send them a letter to the city council and question this and express how this was gonna be a hardship for some of our organizations. And it was amazing because some of the presidents of these organizations were already meeting with some people at the city trying to solve this. And they were basically, no, there was no way. So I told them, well, why don't we send them a letter? Because if there's a will, there's a way. And I know that there's other ways of doing this. Some of them were very, very hesitant, which I was kind of surprised. But I said, okay, what do we have to lose? Let's do it. So the letter went out, and in less than a month, they were working on it. And in less than 2 months, they had solved the issue. They ended up creating a grant that was funded by a private, so it didn't affect that part. And so basically now they have, and they were very pleased, of course, but that's just another example of how this can be helpful. And so, yeah, and this is aside from mentioning how much this has increased the respect and support for all and the school board too. They were positive on their responses, but of course we need to create a committee and we need people that would be willing to do that. But overall, this is just, it takes some time, but definitely can help our community. And voting is also a right, and we need to use it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Odette, any final words?
Just don't lose, especially now. I always say, keep trying. Our faith is greater than our fears. So you just need to keep doing, keep trying, and never say that you do not make a difference. So each one does, and each vote makes a difference. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you. And again, thank you to Jim, Odette, and Maria for taking the time to give this presentation. Really great resources, and great to see the model proven, and great to see the impact that you're all having. So this is really wonderful. Just to wrap it up here, I'm just going to give a plug for, we still have the Support Our Elders drive going on. If you want to sponsor a meal for an elderly person, PALCUS is collecting these donations, and then we'll just disperse the funds to MAPS and Immigrants Assistance Center on the East Coast, and then Poço and Valer here in California. These are 4 groups that are already doing wonderful work to support our elderly population, making sure that they're being taken care of, that they're getting their groceries and their meals, and that they're being checked up on and taken to doctor's visits and things like that. And so this is a way for all of us nationwide to support these organizations that are already doing this wonderful work. So just go to palcus.org/sponsor a meal, and you can sponsor 1 meal, 5 meals, 20 meals, however much your heart desires. So please sponsor a meal for an elderly person. And as I mentioned before, all of our webinars are recorded, and so this one included, and will be on our YouTube channel. We also try to post them on our website. It will also be posted to our social media channels. We will also provide a PDF of the presentation, so that if somebody wants to print it out and use it as a resource, again, we will make this available to everybody. And if you've watched this, and we encourage you to share it with family and friends. These are all webinars are free to the community, and they serve as resources to share necessary and important information with all of our community members nationwide. There is an opportunity to sponsor a webinar. So if anybody would like to help continue to make these free to the public, that would be great. You can just contact us at palcus.org. And with that, just say thank you for attending. I really appreciate it. And I think this has been a success. And again, thank you, Maria, Odette, and Jim. This is really wonderful. And thanks to everybody out there who attended.